Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a video I'm not quite sure that I'm ready to make. It is, will the Cubs make the postseason in 2015? A highly debated topic in the baseball community, and a topic that really hits close to home with me being a Cubs fan and all. I'm actually sitting here doing this commentary in an Anthony Rizzo shirt. I just thought about that. That's pretty ironic. But I'm not sure if I want to make this yet because I don't know of all the trades that are going to be made before opening day, and I also do not know what's going to happen over spring training, if guys are going to perform, guys are going to underperform. There's a lot that could happen in spring training, a lot of injuries that could happen in spring training also, even injuries outside of the Cubs, just in the NL Central that could happen that could completely change the course of the season. So we're going to start at starting pitcher. And we're going to work our way through every position. We're going to discuss it, and then I'm just going to discuss the team as a whole, I guess. So we started starting pitcher, and the Cubs actually have a lot more pitching than a lot of people want to give them credit for. So, of course, they have Jon Lester, number one. There's no reason to talk about Jon Lester. Jon Lester's going to perform. He's a solid pitcher. End of story. Jake Arrieta. I've seen a lot of places calling Jake Arrieta a high-end number 3 starter, or even just a mid-tier number 3 starter, and that just doesn't give credit to the stuff Jake Arrieta has. Jake Arrieta, when he's on point, which he was for most of last season, he is a phenomenal pitcher. He had an ERA, I think, in the mid-2s, and he was a great pitcher last season. This is a guy that took 3 no-hitters into the 7th inning or later, and people just don't want to give him credit for being as solid a pitcher as he is, and that just, as a Cubs fan, that irritates me because he was a great pitcher. He was a number 1 for a few months last year after they traded Jeff Samardzija, and he performed like a number 1. So he's at least a number 2 starter, if not a low-end number 1 starter. So that's what I have to say about Jake Arrieta. Now, Jason Hammel. The Cubs just seem to have a great track record with bringing in free agent veteran pitchers and making them perform better than they have in their entire career. They did it with Scott Feldman and dealt him. I'm pretty sure they did it with Paul Maholm and dealt him. I'm just not sure of the stats. That's why I said I'm pretty sure. They did it with Jason Hammel last year, and they traded him and got good value. But this year they signed Jason Hammel to a 2-year, $20 million deal, and that means that they have faith in Jason Hammel. They have faith in the stuff that he has, and the way that he pitched last year with the Cubs, he was phenomenal. He had an ERA under 2, and that was just great. Jason Hammel, I feel, can be a solid number 3 for the Cubs. Then we go to 4 and 5, which you could probably flip-flop these guys, but I think 4 will be Travis Wood. Everyone's kind of down on Travis Wood this year because he had a poor year last year. He had an ERA, I think, around 5, but this is coming off of an all-star berth, his best season in the major leagues in the 2013 season. He was a phenomenal pitcher, and everyone wants to just discredit that immediately after one bad season. I think Travis Wood's going to bounce back. Then we go to Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks was just phenomenal last season. After he got his call-up, he pitched to an ERA just above 2, I believe, and he was just good. He was solid. He was a fantastic number 5 pitcher. He's probably a middle-of-the-rotation guy, not a back-end-of-the-rotation guy. So I can definitely see them succeeding with Kyle Hendricks at the number 5 spot. Then there's even depth below that. There's Edwin Jackson if they possibly wanted to pitch Edwin Jackson, which I don't see them doing at all. Then you've got C.J. Edwards, who if you're looking for a Cubs pitching prospect is the most likely to get a call-up this season. Pierce Johnson's down there. Ivan Pinheiro, Corey Black, Suros Iwata, who was solid after his call-up last season. There's just a lot of pitching depth, a lot more pitching depth than the Cubs get credit for. So now we'll move on to catcher. And the Cubs have Miguel Montero, David Ross, and Wellington Castillo on their active roster for catchers, and who project to be in the opening day lineup. And a lot of people say that Wellington Castillo, like Travis Wood, is going to be dealt before the opening of the season. And while I do believe he will be dealt, I don't think it would be the worst thing if he isn't dealt before the end of the season. And I'll get you some reasons why. Of course, everyone wants to say that his pitch framing was bad, and that's why they acquired David Ross and Miguel Montero, but there's one thing you can't overlook with Wellington Castillo. He can hit lefties, he can mash lefties really well, and that's something Miguel Montero can't really do. I think when they initially brought Miguel Montero in, they brought Miguel Montero in with the intention of platooning him with Wellington Castillo, because if you look at it, roughly 3/4 of starters in the major leagues are right-handed, so you play Miguel Montero 3/4 of the game, get his great pitch framing 3/4 of the game, then 1/4 of the game you play Wellington Castillo for his bat against lefties because Miguel Montero can't really hit lefties. But then they signed David Ross, and they signed David Ross because he is a great veteran leader, and he is also very good at pitch framing. I don't see really I don't see why they would want to trade Wellington Castillo. I could see them carrying 3 catchers on the roster. This is something that I think a lot of Major League teams are going to start gravitating towards as catchers start hitting better, hopefully. Because once catchers start hitting better, you can call off a catcher off the bench, but that's something a lot of teams don't want to do right now. They don't want to pinch hit a catcher because what if that catcher gets hurt, or the catcher that's already in, then you don't have a catcher on your roster that you have. I guess that was kind of irrelevant for me to say you don't have a catcher that you can have. That was kind of contradictory or just flat out stupid for me to say. But there's no other catcher on your roster then. You can't call someone in. You're going to have to trust on one of your backup infielders or possibly even a pitcher to come in and catch for you. And that's not a situation you want to be in. But if you have 3 catchers, and David Ross isn't a guy that's going to hit well, obviously not. He's going to pitch for him, though. He's going to be there for his defense and his leadership skills. So I can see them carrying 3 catchers on the roster and using Miguel Montero and Wellington Castillo in a platoon situation. Then we move on to first base. Anthony Rizzo, coming off an all-star season, an amazing season. He hit .282 with 34 home runs, I want to say. And he was just solid. He was a great leader. He's a leader in the clubhouse. He called them making the playoffs this year, and he's a guy I'd want leading my team if I was in the majors right now, too. Then we move on to second base. Second base could be an interesting situation. We're just going to talk about the infield as a whole from here on out, except for shortstop. Starlin Castro obviously stays at shortstop. He had a bounce-back season last season from a bad 2013 in which he hit about .230. And I think that he is probably going to be a .280 hitter for the rest of his career. Maybe .290, .300 hitter, low 300s. But he's going to start developing power over the next few seasons. This is a guy that's only 25 years old. He's had like 5 or 6 years in the majors, but he's only 25 years old. He's still developing. He's still going to get more powerful. So I can see him being a 20 home run guy in the majors as soon as this year. And at shortstop, that's very valuable. Then I'm just going to talk about second and third base simultaneously right now because I don't know what's going to happen. So right now, it is projected that Kris Bryant is not going to make the opening day roster. He is going to be held down in the minor leagues for a little bit so that they can get that extra year of arbitration on him. And I can understand that. I can understand that from a Cubs fan point of view. I can understand that from a baseball fan point of view. I can understand it from both of them. You want to keep the guy on your team as long as possible, so I can definitely see them doing that. And if they do that, most likely Tommy La Stella plays third base, because they acquired him probably to be a backup infielder, but Tommy La Stella plays third base, Javier Baez plays second. Javier Baez strikes out a lot, doesn't hit for a lot of average, probably going to bring it up to about .240 this year, hopefully, but he's going to hit a lot of home runs. Tommy La Stella, he's going to hit for some average. I see him hitting about .280 this season. But there is an alternative scenario. What if Kris Bryant just completely mashes it out of AAA, or out of spring training? He's hitting the ball so extremely well. He's hitting fantastically in AAA. He's having the season that Javier Baez had last year at AAA. Or not at AAA. God damn, why do I keep saying AAA? He's having the same season last year as Javier Baez was having at spring training. And Javier Baez struggles in spring training this year. Javier Baez strikes out a lot in spring training, doesn't hit for a high average, and maybe he doesn't hit a lot of home runs. That's a very good possibility. Then I can see the Cubs starting Kris Bryant at third base on opening day, sending Javier Baez down to the minors, and putting Tommy La Stella at second base. I believe that's the entire reason why they acquired Tommy La Stella, is as an insurance policy on Javier Baez in case he doesn't hit well this season, or struggles out of spring training, or struggles out of the first month or two of the season. They're probably going to send Javier Baez down to the minors if that happens. It's not what a lot of Cubs fans want to hear, but there's a good chance that Javier Baez plays in the minor leagues at some point this season, and Tommy La Stella plays at second base. Why else would they have traded for another middle infielder? They already have extreme depth at the middle infield position. They have Javier Baez, they have Starlin Castro, they have Addison Russell, they have guys you don't hear about like Gleyber Torres down there. There's a bunch of guys. Arizmendi Alcantara can even play the infield, so Arizmendi Alcantara could get some reps at third base if they wanted to keep Kris Bryant down and they wanted to keep Javier Baez down. There's a lot of things that could happen. It could be Arizmendi Alcantara at third and Tommy La Stella at second to start the season. It could be La Stella at third and Alcantara at second to start the season. There's a multitude of different things that can happen in the Cubs infield, and I guarantee at some point this season, Kris Bryant will be down or Javier Baez will be down, if not both of them at the same time. Now we move to the outfield, a very interesting conversation for the Cubs. So there's no longer a place for Arizmendi Alcantara to start in the outfield. It is filled up. You've got Jorge Soler, who's definitely going to be starting in right field. He's got that big power arm. He's got the great bat. He may have some speed even. He's probably going to hit for some average. They didn't sign him to a huge contract for nothing. He's going to be starting. Even if he struggles, he's still getting paid. They're not worrying about arbitration. They're not going to send him down at the beginning of the season. He's got years on his contract still. He's not going to go to arbitration ever. So he's plugged into right field. Then they traded for Dexter Fowler. Dexter Fowler is going to be your starting center fielder on opening day. He could even be moved at the trade deadline if Arizmendi Alcantara starts to hit. I like the move from the Cubs acquiring Dexter Fowler. He's a solid leadoff hitter that's going to get a high OBP and be decent out in the field. So if Arizmendi Alcantara starts to hit, I could definitely see them moving Dexter Fowler and slotting Arizmendi at the number 1 spot and starting him in center field. But for right now, I see Dexter Fowler just being this. Sorry about that. Dexter Fowler being the center fielder the entire season. Sorry, I'm trying not to burp and stuff. Then we go to left field. Left field is going to be a platoon, in my opinion, of Chris Denorfia against lefties and Chris Coghlan against righties. So it's going to be the outfield of Chris's in left field, actually. I don't see Ryan Sweeney doing anything, really, in my opinion. Actually, I think Ryan Sweeney may be designated for assignment before the beginning of the season. That's a real possibility. He's just not a spectacular player. He doesn't do a lot of things well, in my opinion. He's an okay fielder. He's okay with a bat. He runs okay power. I just don't see the Cubs holding on to him for too much longer. I think they're going to get rid of him before the season starts. But Chris Coghlan, Chris Denorfia, they're going to do a platoon because they both hit the opposite-handed pitching very, very well. They're both decent fielders. Chris Coghlan had that breakout year last year. Chris Denorfia is going to be bouncing back from San Diego. He's definitely going to a better ballpark because there's not many ballparks that are worse than San Diego. So I can see that happening. Then we go to the bullpen. The Cubs definitely need to acquire another lefty, in my opinion. Whoever that may be, or internally, I just don't see Zach Roscup being able to do it all by himself. I know they rolled all of last year with just Wesley Wright. No, they didn't. They had James Russell for part of the year. So they rolled most of last year with 2 lefties, and then at the end they had just Wesley Wright. So I think they need to get another left-handed pitcher for the bullpen just to split the workload against lefties a little bit more. But you've got solid guys in that bullpen, like Justin Grimm, who can make spot starts if you need him to. Felix Doubront, if they want to start Felix Doubront in the bullpen, is a solid lefty. He can definitely do long relief. He can do spot starts, anything really. You got Pedro Strop, who's just got electric stuff, just missing bats all over the place. Neil Ramirez was a monster out of the bullpen last season after his call-up. Blake Parker should be with the Major League Cubs this year. He has some pretty nasty breaking stuff. Hector Rondon should be closing games. He's a very solid pitcher also. He was actually kind of a big breakout star last year. No one expected him to run away with the closer's job. Everyone thought it was going to be Jose Veras, but Hector Rondon stole it. And yeah, that's pretty much what we have to talk about. Maybe a few minor league players to highlight. You've got, of course, as I said, C.J. Edwards, who's probably going to be up at some point this season, if just for a spot start maybe. You've got Chris Bryant, who's going to be up at some point if he doesn't make the opening day roster, which he probably won't. Albert Almora will probably make it to AAA this season. Hopefully Kyle Schwarber can make it to some high levels of the minor this season. I don't think he's going to be a catcher, but he could be a catcher. You never know. And there's a lot of other position player prospects. Expect the Cubs to trade a guy named Dan Vogelbach at some point this season for something. He's a first baseman down in AAA who hits the ball very, very, very well, but he's just not a fielder. He's kind of like Billy Butler. He's going to hit the ball well. He's going to hit a lot more home runs than Billy Butler, though, but he just can't field to save his life, to be honest. He fits more of a DH role, so expect him to move to an American League team at some point and maybe be part of a prospect package for a starting pitcher at some point during the season. Probably not Cole Hamels, but maybe a lesser tier starting pitcher who's on last year of his deal. Maybe if the White Sox fall out of it early, maybe we see Vogelbach go to the White Sox for part of a Samardzija deal. I don't know. Who knows? But that's basically all this. I've just been rambling about the Cubs and baseball in general for the last 15 minutes. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, don't forget to drop a like rating. Comment down below letting me know what you guys think. Oh, I forgot to give my overall projections. Do I think the Cubs are going to make the playoffs this year? Probably not, to be honest. If I'm being completely honest, the Cubs are not going to make the playoffs this season. Do I want the Cubs to make the playoffs? Yes. Do I think there's a reasonable chance the Cubs make the playoff? Yes. Do I expect the Cubs to make the playoffs? No, because there's too much talent in the division, within the division. The Reds are going to have a bounce-back season. They're going to get a lot of their players healthy. Brandon Phillips, Joey Votto. Joey Votto hits exceptionally well. They've got Todd Frazier, who broke out. You've got the Pirates. The Pirates got A.J. Burnett back, so they have another solid pitcher in their rotation. They kept Francisco Liriano. They still have Garrett Cole. I don't think Andrew McCutchen's going to break a rib again this season, so he's not going to miss a month. The Cardinals, they've got a pretty solid rotation. That rotation could fall apart at some point this season, but I think that rotation is going to be pretty solid. They've got hitting for days. They've got prospects for days. They always seem to be able to call some guy up from the minors, and he'll either hit the ball really well or he'll throw 90-plus miles an hour and just be a dominant pitcher. They've got all the prospects in the world down there in St. Louis, except for the Cubs. I shouldn't say that. The Cubs have more prospects than the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are just numerous. The Cubs have quality, but the Cardinals are just numerous in prospects. Then you've got the Brewers, who, I don't know what the hell the Brewers are going to do this season. They just traded Giovanni Gallardo. There's so many question marks about the Brewers. Are they going to be good or are they not going to be good? It could go either way with the Brewers, just as it could go either way with the Cubs. But I definitely expect the Cubs to be somewhere around 500 this year. 82 and 80. Or 81 and 81, maybe even 82 and 80. Who knows? They could, in my opinion, they could reasonably win at most 86 games. And that's just my honest projection, but that's good enough to make a wild card. Good enough to make a wild card. So, guys, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy the video, as always, I encourage you to leave a like rating, subscribe for more awesome videos. I do baseball videos, Star Wars Battlefront videos, everything you want to see. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later.